Who's ready to solve 5 outside the box chess puzzles? These are all peculiar positions. We're going to do some mate in 2s and some just winning positions. Fun fact of the day, did you guys know grandmasters train by looking at goofy mate in 2 positions? It helps them to allow thinking outside the box. So, I invite you to try and solve these positions. First one, I'll post the fens to these positions down below. You can pause the video and try to solve them alongside. And the answers will be here. White to mate in 2. How do you do it? What do you do? Well, many people might be like, oh, this is easy. I'm just going to make a queen and then figure it out. Maybe he'll fall into a mate in 1. Unlikely, maybe impossible. So that can't be it. So you cannot take the rook and promote to a queen, even though you'd be up material. It's not a mate in 2, right? It's all my engineering people. N equals 1. We want peak efficiency, as little room for error as possible, right? The more simple the mate, the faster you end the game, the less likely it is you fall into a mistake. So how do we do this? Try and solve it. The first move is queen to c6. This is understanding the mating box that white has created. These are forcing moves. The king takes, and what's the mate in 1? We only have a knight. But we have a pawn 1 away from promoting. But if we promote that pawn to a queen, it's not checkmate. But if we promote that pawn to a knight, it is checkmate. Isn't that beautiful? Did you solve it? This knight covers c7 and d6. The pawn guards it. This knight delivers a checkmate and covers the escape square that is d7. So a goofy mate in 2 puzzle. Now that you get the concept, let's try to do another. White to mate in 2. I find this funny because I give this to my students. I'm like, mate in 2. They're like, oh my goodness, that's beautiful. I solved it. They're like, knight to d5. I'm like, okay, king b5. They're like, queen takes b7. I'm like, king a4. They're like, takes. I'm like, knight a5. They're like, takes checkmate. Boom, mate in 2. I'm like, was that 2 moves? They're like, no. I was like, so was that the answer? They're like, no. And then, see, so of course that's the second best line, and you found a mate in 4. That's still very good, but it's a mate in 2. Try and solve it. I think what many people miss in this puzzle is that the bishop guards the rook. That's a key feature. And because the bishop guards the rook, you're able to go queen to c7. What is black's only move? Well, his only move, right? He can't go here. He can't go here. His only move is to take the queen. And now knight to d5 is actually just checkmate because the bishop guards the rook. Now we're going to turn it up a notch and we're going to solve some more puzzles. We're going to do this one, which a grandmaster actually got wrong. I forget who was playing it, but it was 2 grandmasters, well-known grandmasters. Look at the vest. Vests are fly. I don't care what anybody says. Also, you might be like, Balkan Dad, why are you wearing a vest? Well, I'll have you know it's out of wisdom. Your boy is a quarter of a century years old today. That's just amazing. Now whenever I see, like a fat person and I'm like, ugh, gross, or something along the lines, or a thick, let me be scientifically correct. No, there's many terms for them. Just like, ugh. It doesn't come from a place of childish humor. It comes from a place of wisdom. A quarter of a century wisdom. This is amazing. Most people think, they're like, oh, time goes so fast. I feel like it goes so slowly. I can't believe I'm still in my 20s. I feel like I'm 80 years old. I'm like, yo, I'm ready. I am ready. It's been too many years on this earth. No, but seriously, I'm kind of glad it is the way it is. Because, I'm just a happy guy. You know what's funny about life nowadays? It's like most people are unhappy. And then they're like, when they see a happy person, they try to ruin that person's happiness. It's like, but don't you want to be happy too? It's like, I don't know. You get what I'm saying? It's just strange. I feel like people say they wish people were more happy, but then when they see a person that's actually content with their life, in a good mood, just, chilling, at peace with everything, they're like, grr. It's like, relax, go figure out how to be happy. But back to chess. Back to wisdom. Quarter of a century wisdom. Let's go. What is white's best move here? In the game, white played bishop takes g7, king takes g7, knight to g4. It's okay. He ended up to win that game, luckily, but there is a win here. And that win is knight to d7. You might be like 97. What is this? Well, the point is the queen cannot take because the bishop will take the queen. You are now threatening to go queen takes pawn, where there are immense amount of threats and checkmates, all of the sorts. And okay, of course, we're going to go over bishop takes d7 because it's the best move, but what happens if bishop takes h6? What happens if bishop takes h6? The best move is rook takes e6. You might be like, but you get forked. Is that a fork? It's kind of a fork, but that's a pin. I know for certain that's a pin, and that is a win for white. Easy. So let's look over the best line. Bishop takes d7. Boom. How do you win as white? You just lost a piece, but you won a pawn, and that is a threat. That is a threat. You might be like, I don't get it. My queen is not pinned. This is a true statement, but look at this. Queen takes, king f8, bishop c1. That's good. That's good stuff. That's a mating box. I love these retreating bishop moves. Fantastic. You could have brought it to f4 too, but I like moving the bishop back to its starting square. You know, many people, they're like, bishop back to its starting square, you're undeveloping. Very bad. I would argue that the biggest reason you develop your bishops is to get castled, connect the rooks, and get your rooks into the game. Once that has been taken care of, it's actually very good to move the bishop backwards because it can go to the king side or the queen side in a moment's notice, and it's far from any threats or tempo losses or tempi gain if you're on the opposite side. So these backwards bishop moves are very good. That is a plus 10 position, so hopefully you can convert that. Bishop c8 is the best move. Now what do you do? Well, you're down a piece, so surely you can't trade queens. Except you can. This is an exception position. You go bishop to c4 check, where you either win the material back with win, wisdom. But if the king moves, bishop to c1, I couldn't think of the word I'm looking for, but let's just leave you with that nice mate. That's just a nice mate, right? It's just a good mate. You're winning material. Let's say like knight e6, bishop a3 check. The king has to move. Say it goes, I don't know, say it goes there, and you call over the tournament director. d5, you're just getting through. I mean, all your pieces are so activated and in the game. Vice versa, their pieces are not in the game. So, that's a pretty cool puzzle, right? I think that's a pretty cool one. All right, two more. This one's peculiar. It's a mate in 6. So, first of all, how do we get this pawn structure? White is going up, black is going down. Did they like captured? Were they like, did they break the rules and just be like, excuse me, good sir, let me get past you? And they were like, okay, excuse me, I'll get past you as well, right? It's a peculiar pawn structure because the pawns are all in front of each other. So I think the most logical move to think of is rook takes a5, at which point we would get king b7, rook a7, king takes c6, and oh, rook c7 mate. Rook c7 mate, except it's not mate because the rook is on g7. That is the whole problem with rook takes a5. So what do? There's multiple winning moves, but there's only one forced mate. And that forced mate is rook to g6. Why is this mate? Well, it's mate because they have to take. If they don't take, you take, right? Like, okay, so let's say this, take, if take, that's mate. And if not take, that is mate. So by process of elimination, PEMDAS, whatever you want to call it, they got to go rook takes g6. And now it's mate in 3. That was a deflection tactic. Rook takes a5, the king has to go to b7, a little bit of a mating box. If king here, rook c7 is checkmate, and if king takes c6, rook c7 is also checkmate. Good. Now the final peculiar position, a rook versus minor piece. Now I know what you all are saying. You're like, I've heard this before, it's a draw. Rook versus knight, draw. Rook takes versus bishop, draw. Well, in theory, yes. But there are certain positions where that does not hold true. For example, is that a knight? Is this knight destined to do great things, or is it destined to be trapped and lost? The latter. So this is actually a king and a rook versus a king if you play it correctly. What do? Well, you do not start by going for checkmate. Even though that's tempting, if the knight gets out, it will be a draw. So what do? You might be like, okay, I need to trap the knight. Let me go king f4. The problem with king f4, look at that, it's a draw. Crazy, isn't that crazy? You just go to trap the knight and it's a draw. King to d4. And now you can't move your king away. It's tied down to the rook. And if the rook moves, then the knight gets out, either to here or to here. And then it's a draw, a theoretical draw. So this is almost like triangulation. That's why it's fascinating. What's the critical square you need to get your king to trap this knight? Well, to g4. Because then the rook can attack it from the first rank. Can't go out here, can't go out here, can't go out here. So you need to get your king to g4. So king f4 threatens that, but then your king gets tied down to your rook. So it's a little bit like triangulation is the way I think about it, right? King f5. If they don't attack your rook, you just go king g4 and you just trap their knight. What if they do attack your rook? Well, you see, you kind of lost a tempo to win the game. King to f4. I caught myself from stuttering there, though I did a little bit. Right, and what do they do now? Here, take, king over, king g4. And do you guys know how to win with a king and a rook versus a king? I'm going to assume so, because if you don't, then none of these 5 puzzles would have made sense to you. So I hope you enjoyed these positions, quite peculiar. Let me know some video ideas down below, some games you want me to review, some puzzles you'd like me to take a look at. And send in your games and we'll take a look at those as well. Thank you as always for watching. Peace. See you later.